Southland, part 2. Drew a map here to get some idea of what's going on here. So, this is Southlands. This is not Mordor. This is Southlands. Okay, so just we're clear, Southlands here. Not really at all to Mordor here. And because, again, as I said, I'm trying to remove all Tolkien out of this because I have some leniency for some of our cast here because they're all original creations. So we're going to remove Tolkien out of the equation right here and just see the merits on the arc of what happens in the Southlands and how it holds on its own. So, these are the Southlands, not Mordor. What do we got here? We've got the mountains to the north, mountains to the west, mountains to the bottom. Theoretically speaking, Harad should be down there, Rovanien is over there, and Rune will be over there. But, you know, we're not going by that right now. So, we have a volcano. As we go here, we have Osterith, which is the name of the watchtower, or if it's a region. I don't know, I think it's just the name of the fortification that's happening right there. And the villages that these human inhabitants are somewhere in here. This region right here. So, this is kind of the lay of our land. Again, here's our cast. I'll go ahead and briefly talk about them as they kind of show up in there. If you want another summation of it, go watch part 1 of this. But, here we go. What happens in the Southlands? In Episode 1, again, this is, as the actual episode of Rings of Power goes, it intersperses them with cutting into, going back to like Galadriel and what she's doing, come back to the elves in there. So, when I say this concludes episode, like not a lot happened, that's just because that's particular arc in that episode right there. But on the whole, we'll see what happens here. So, we go to the villages, and we have Arondir. It's kind of like our first person. He is our elf, has the pointy ears. He's got the bow and arrow. He's a hunter, watchman, lookout, elf individual. Okay, so he has been stationed at the watchtower to look over the descendants of these people here, these Southlanders, who it has been established that eons ago there was a super omega dark evil being that did some super dark omega stuff. And he got rid of him, so he was gone, but he had some very strong followers, and it has been rumored that a particular follower was very loyal and might try to start up again. So that's why these elves are here, to kind of look over these people. So like, okay, so you got original descendants sided with this enemy, again, supposed to be Morgoth, well, but, so that, okay, so those people sided with them originally. It may be possible that these people may side with more evil beings to might call on them. Okay, so that is the setup. Again, this whole idea of setting up and paying off. How does this work? So, this is just, wow. So, this is the setup we have here. So, the villages, they're just doing their thing. They've got they got this lovely sequence where they're all, you know, like in the fields. They're kind of like they're homesteaders, farmers. But hey, hang on, wait a second. If they're all in the fields and they're mowing, I'm assuming they're not mowing grass, right? That they'd be mowing fields, right, for grain, for harvest time, which would indicate that they have a surplus of food. Which means when we later, when something happens, okay, I'm jumping the gun here, but yeah, okay, there's a plot point that revolves surplus and not surplus of food later on in the story. So I'm like, sorry, my mind just got blown right there. So I'm like, wait a minute, that would be harvest time, right? While they're all harvesting, mowing down that sequence right at the very opening, like, okay, anyway. Levi, set that aside for later. We gotta move on. We got other bigger fish to fry here. Arondir, he's at the villagers and he's keeping an eye on what's going on right here. And there is this sequence where it's a shove-off knife-is situation. It's basically where the Southlander people here are unhappy a bit with the whole elven occupation type thing where they have these people looking over them to make sure they're staying in line. Again, it's kind of the best way I can describe it. I guess it would be accurate to say like that's kind of how they interpret the situation there. I guess you say that the elves, they kind of look at it differently because they see it that from their point of view, this like, hey, we're just trying to do our job here, and it seems to be what the arc of what Arandir's character arc is like. He's kind of conflicted, and he kind of has this thing that, okay, I'm just trying to do my job, I'm keeping an eye on you, but I'm also kind of invested in, if not specific type of character, specifically Bronwyn here, but, you know, so I'm like, okay, I'm assuming that's what they're trying to go for, set up and pay off, but we have our plucky individual who gets up into like Arandir's face, and he makes the claim that like, someday you elves will be gone, and that our king will return, and we'll be back to, you know, the way things were. Like, okay, set up. They are supposed to be looking for their king. Apparently they have some sort of king that they had originally. He's not there now, and they're currently waiting for it. Set up. It ties into, in this particular four-part series, and later on in the second half, I'm like, that does not add up. So you set up that we've had, like, okay, so these villagers are a kind of ragtag group of people. Okay, fine, cool with that. They have some form of governmental monarchy system, and they're waiting for their rightful ruler to come back and make things right so that these elven rulers can go away. Okay, that's the story you want to go with? Fine. Because, you know, like, okay, so, because, again, is it racism that these elves are watching over humans? But, you know, like, we'll sidestep that earlier, right there. By the way, I have kind of like my notes right here, because I've got more notes that I can actually put on the whiteboard. So that's why I'm just kind of like scrolling through stuff that I hear to bring up points and hopefully talking about. So this is kind of the current setup that I have right now. So this is what we're going with here. So, yes. In this sequence where this young, again, I think that he's mentioned briefly that he has a name, this young character. He seems to be a friend of our actual named boy here, Theo, who has a name. But that character who like gets up and around your face, I'm pretty sure he kind of has a name at one point, but he's like briefly mentioned, like nobody remembers him, and then he's like gets like killed off. Spoiler. But in this, it seems to be like a tavern type situation. We have Waldrick is kind of introduced here as well. So Waldrick, I want to say, I don't know if he owns the tavern there. He kind of seems to help kind of run it. He's holding the butcher cleaver. At least that's what I tried to draw there anyway. And so like he's you know, slicing up the meat. He seems to be the kind of responsible for like serving drinks if needed. So I'm gonna say he runs the tavern. If other people know exactly if he does actually run the tavern or not, but you know, it seems like he's kind of in charge of has some semblance of authority in this establishment here, which is part of the play. So, okay, so it's established that people kind of view Waldrick, or if not or anything, like Waldrick has some sort of authority that, you know, like he has like a say, like, hey, what goes on in this establishment or in this area, let alone the town in general. Like, he seems to have at least some sort of speaking authority for some of the people, which begs into the question, okay, so like who actually is the final authority here? So like, okay, you've established that you had a king at one point, so like who's kind of running all of this? We'll get to that later. But, so Waldrick is a bit suspicious about Arandir, not because it doesn't seem to be as fully established that, you know, like maybe the full animosity of the whole elven occupation thing. It kind of does seem a bit, you know, like protective of the, like a little bit of the boy, the nameless boy who kind of gets up on Arandir's face, you know, like, hey, you know, calm down, like, don't start a thing. So he like has a little bit of protective instincts, but he is a bit suspicious of Arandir specifically because he kind of notices that Arandir may have his eye set on Bronwyn, which is the female character of our show. She's holding a flower. It's established here that she is kind of an herbalist, healer type person. I don't know if it's her house that she lives in, or if it's like sort of like an apothecary that she has. I'm not sure with it, but people kind of come to her for like sort of like medicinal needs, whatever. But yeah, so she kind of has that nurturing aspect because she kind of like has flowers and seeds. She is the one who has the son Theo, so she has that motherly aspect. So that whole motherly, nurturing life aspect part of Bronwyn's character arc. That's why she has the flower there. Sorry for that, didn't mean to pump that. But Arandir goes after this whole incident happens, where it's like where you shove off, we're gonna get ya, you know, whatever. So like something, he decides to okay, you know, he's gonna leave the tavern, he's gonna go do what he needs to do, and stops by Bronwyn's place. And it seems like oh, okay. It's weird because it seems like we are thrust smack into the middle of their kind of like budding relationship. So I'm like, okay, generally, and I'm not saying you can't do this or not, but generally we send the general rule of thumb, as far as I'm concerned, is that you introduce like, okay, we have two people who are going to have a relationship. You start out with the first meeting, whether it goes good or bad, or whatever, you can do whatever the route is something like, oh, it didn't go very well, but then they eventually become, you know, friends and interested, or something like, oh man, they hit it off right out of the first gate, doesn't matter. But that seems to be on like, okay, that's generally the route, or you kind of establish that they're kind of already kind of in the relationship a bit, you know, that maybe things have been going bad, or they want to take it the next step further, whatever. But yeah, here we're kind of like smack in the middle phase right there, where like they've established a couple of contacts, and I'm like, it kind of felt weird a bit. Maybe that was just me, but it was something that we got. So, yeah, so cast of characters: Arondir, Bronwyn, Theo, and Waldrick. We have some. I'm just gonna mention some of the dialogue here. This particular scene that Arondir and Bronwyn are having their meeting, and so, you know, we're kind of seeing like what Bronwyn kind of like medicinal capabilities she has, and Bronwyn asks Arondir, do you have healers? Because, you know, she is kind of like a healer, and so she's asking Arondir, do you Elven, have healers as well? I guess kind of hinting at, because we don't really know that he is going to be the Watchman's going to be disbanded yet, but I guess maybe that was supposed to be done after that scene right there. But anyway, she asks, do you have healers? And his response is, yes, but we call them artificers. Most wounds to our bodies heal of their own accord, so it's their labor instead to render hidden truths as works of beauty, for beauty has great power to heal the soul. Now, when you kind of say it between like two people who are kind of interested in like hushed tones, and the music is kind of swelling, and it's in like the whole fantasy epic, you might kind of gloss over that and say like, oh, okay, it's somewhat poetic, I kind of get the idea, let's move on. When you actually break it down, do you have healers? Yes, but we call them artificers. Okay, you want to have a fancy name to call them? Okay, fine, go with that. You call them artificers. Most wounds to our bodies heal of their own accord. Okay, so you have some sort of super that you're able to take on damage, fine. Do you want to say I don't know if it's like full Wolverine, X-Men type thing, but okay, so you have some resistance or resilience that you have to take on injuries. Okay, fine. So, it is their labor, instead, to render hidden truths as works of beauty. So, okay, you don't have doctors then. Because, yes, but we call them artificers. Our bodies can't get hurt physically, so our doctors don't really need medicine, per se. We just draw pictures, tell stories, and do interpretive dances. Because that's arts, and art has great power to heal the soul. Am I reading that wrong? Or is that basically what he's saying, right? Because I'm like, so that's what I think. Because that's what I first when I first watched the scene, I was watching it. I was sitting back, and he hit me with that line, and I had to feel, I'm like, okay, something doesn't feel right. I had to quick read that down and rewind a little bit. And as I thought about it, mulled over it, I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck is this? I'm like, we call them artificers. Fine, you want to have a cool name for them? Fine. Yeah, by the way, apparently Arondir is a grower, apparently. He's not like a farmer or anything, they call him a grower. We'll get into other weird dialogue later. But, so yeah, apparently their doctors are called artificers, and they have wounds to their bodies heal of their own accord, so they don't really need medicine, so you don't have doctors. Instead, it's their labor to render hidden truths as works of beauty, for beauty has great power to heal the soul. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was just interesting. And this is within this is the first episode, by the way. So this is just a taste of the dialogue. That's not getting into like one of the first like 5-10 minutes where what is his name, Finrod is talking to his younger sister, the young actress Galadriel, and talks about how a boat floats because it looks up and a rock sinks because it looks down. That was some dialogue right there. Again, we're focusing on Southlanders here. So it looks like it's seeming that like Arondir has maybe no need of Bronwyn or her capabilities because like he has super bad mega healing. So what is their situation going to end up and how? Who cares? Again, the chemistry between these two, not really the greatest. Sorry, but like you try to see like okay, I feel what they're trying to go for, but well, we'll get into what they're trying to do later in a particular episode of what it actually interprets as. But Arondir, takes his leave, does his finishing up. We also meet an Armpit Elf. Armpit Elf is I feel so bad for saying that because he probably has a name. Again, like other boy that Theo pairs with, like he probably sure has a name. But Armpit Elf, that's what we call him because all we know about him is that he smells like dead leaves or dried leaves. And so he goes, smells like, no I don't, and he smells and he's like, how you do? And he's like, what are you talking about? And so I'm like, oh okay, well that's Armpit Elf. So I'm like, that's been his nickname, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for Armpit Elf, I really love to know your name, but it's emblazed because some things happened to Armpit Elf and he was left behind and bad things happened to Armpit Elf deserved better, okay? That's all I'm saying. Armpit Elf deserved better. There should be a hashtag somewhere like Armpit Elf deserved better. Anyway, Arondir, he goes back from the villagers and doing his rounds or whatever. Again, it doesn't really say like how long it takes from Arondir to go from wherever the village situation is to the watchtower. By the way, I had to figure out where the heck Osterith was located, and apparently that's where it is on the map. I had to go to Amazon Prime to figure out where exactly. If you look on the Southland, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm thinking that's kind of where it's at. So, again, we'd like to just know where the villages are located, but it's somewhere in this, because we know they're not by the rivers here. This is the sea. I don't know if it's of Nurnen, because, that would be Tolkien. But, so somewhere up, but we can not too close to the volcano, but somewhere in there, so we don't know how long it is to get from the villages back to the watchtower. He goes back to the watchtower, and we meet his captain, who has, gotten certain orders that the elves and the watchtower here are going to go off. We have been disbanded. We're supposed to go home, our job is done, we're no longer needed here. So, okay, maybe you could have a conflict of interest here. I'm like, okay, job is done. Maybe he can go back home and have a life. He's kind of had, from the audience's perspective, the humans here maybe seem to have not treated him very well. So maybe he's glad to be gone. But then they have the conflict of maybe he kind of likes this Bronwyn type character. So maybe he wants to say you could have a conflict here. Again, what they could have done and what they went with. But, so anyway, he gets his orders, saying, I'm like, oh, okay. Again, we don't really, so okay, apparently it's supposed to be very quick, apparently. So, they're getting off ready to pack, immediately. Again, I don't know how long that would take. If we're okay, we're packing up, we have to, shut these things down, get these things in order, and then finally head out. I'm assuming that would take, a couple of days at least. But, I don't know, apparently it's, within 24 hours, it looks like. Again, time is another thing in the show. So, Arondir, we've met his buddy, Armpit Elf, and the captain, being disbanded. So, Arondir is coming back to the village in some point in the timeline to go say goodbye to Bronwyn to say hey, looks like I'm leaving. Things have been happening. This is the part where we actually meet Theo, right here. And he's kind of currently holding the sword because that kind of gives him the idea of okay, young, plucky hero wants to do something better. He doesn't have a sword yet, but he, eventually will. But, that's kind of the way how I drew him right there. But Theo, I don't know if he like dislikes Arondir, but he is kind of a bit suspicious of like, hey, why is Mom Bronwyn seeming to be hanging out with this particular elf? Maybe he has some like settled belief in his head, you know, like the elves are kind of watching over us and what's going on right here. So I'm like, okay, I can understand. You kid, you know, you've grown up with these elven people watching over you. You're a bit suspicious of them. Why is your mom, you know, hanging out with this elf? You as a kid, you probably have perceptive eyes. You see what's going on. Maybe you're not the best happy situation. Okay, I can believe that. Fine. So that's the setup there. Yeah. We'll give props to this. I think I mentioned this in the previous one with the general summation. We actually got an actual scene set up and payoff that actually got a reaction from me. Is that while Arondir is coming to the village and to say goodbye to Bronwyn, and you know, and also Theo kind of doesn't really, he kind of like hides a lot, like I don't want to really talk to this person. I'm gonna go hide, do my own thing. So they're in the middle of trying to say goodbye. Some farmer or homesteaders, one of the villagers there, brings a cow that claims to be, hey, listen, old Bessie's sick. I don't know what's wrong with her. That's not his accent. I'm just going. That's the accent I just chose for this character right here. But so like, okay, so this cow seems to, he says, is like unwell. You know, something's wrong. So Bronwyn, it's been established. So she's kind of like the healer of kind of like the town. So she's kind of looking over. He doesn't seem to have like a fever. You know, like I can't figure out on service level what's going on with here. But it seems like around here, maybe it's because his like, his hunter intuition, his spidey senses go off, where he like figures out something, and he goes down by the cow's udders and just goes to squeeze some of the milk that comes out, and this black sludgy tar comes out of there, and I was like, okay, you know what? That was an actual cool scene. Like, you're supposed to set up that things are starting to be dark and ominous. I'm like, okay, that one actually worked. I'll give you props for that one there. Like, that was a bit creepy. So good on that one. So they were trying to figure out, so like, okay, so obviously that's unusual. What the heck's happening here? And so some of the conclusion is like, okay, well maybe because it's from the cow's udder, well what was the cow eating or the grazing? Okay, fairly logical. So where, like, and he gives the clue, like I think it was further, wherever on the map, like by the next village nearby. So it's like, okay, well let's go over and investigate. So Bronwyn kind of decides to go over to the place to see what's up, because she's kind of the healer. Maybe she does maybe like she does plants, so maybe she kind of understands what kind of food sources this cow might be eating. And of course, Arondir, even though he's been disbanded, his job is like, okay, well I'm kind of again, this is not really set up whether like it's his job to be continuing to keep an eye on whether certain dark things are going, or whether it's because he just wants to still be with Bronwyn. Get everything go, but okay, you can have the conflict of interest. Maybe if they went with that arc, but so apparently Arondir and Bronwyn go together to go see this area that they think that the cows were grazing, to see the origin of some sickness that this cow may have. So they go off to go in that one there. Theo, he went out to something like, yeah, Mom, you're kind of hanging out with this elf. Like, I'm gonna go hang out and play with my buddy. Okay, again, the one nameless youth that got into the elf's face that I don't remember his name. But this young kid, nameless, says like, hey buddy, listen, I want to show you something. I found something. It's really cool. And this is where, again, like how this kid found it, we don't know. But it is a sword hilt. But it's very, just because of the music and the look of the hilt, it was a very dark, ominous type blade instrument here. And, speaking of Lord of the Rings trying to be Tolkien, if you could imagine, for those of you who haven't seen it, think of like Anduril or Narsil, kind of the big sword that this is Glamdring, by the way, that Elendil, that Isildur eventually picked up and cut off the ring from Sauron, but the blade snapped when Sauron stepped on it, and so it's like, like only a part, it's more of a dagger now. So whenever I say this, I'm going to actually be referring to, I'm going to be pulling out my Bowie knife here for this one, because I'm like, I don't want to be wielding this thing. I'll pull it out when I need to. So he finds this sword hilt, but it's like really long handle. It's got the cross guard, and it's but it has enough of an edge that you can, slash if you need or stab somebody. So, okay, he's found this weird looking sword hilt. It's around this time that, the final thing that happens is the ominous thing is the meteor crashing nearby, which kind of signals like, oh, what's happening over there? It crashes over by the Harfoot area, because that's where it continues off on that arc. But before this, we have this lovely piece of dialogue that, again, so Arondir and Bronwyn, they're walking along, they're going over to see, the area where they think the cow was doing their stuff, and it's been established, like Arondir mentions that, hey, your people, basically I'm just trying to sum it up here, Arondir says that your people sided with the enemy eons ago. Evil, is, natural to them. It can be in their blood, and so Bronwyn kind of gets a little bit upset. And she's like, hey, those are my people, like they're part of me as well. And he has the line that says like, and well, that's why I'm here with you instead of the Watchtower. And I'm guessing they're trying to be like, okay, it's trying to be a little bit more of the romantic side, like I'm choosing to be with you rather than like doing what I'm supposed to, reporting stuff to the Watchtower, even though at this point, why would he report? You've been disbanded. But okay, let's break this down. Arondir has said that you, I don't know if he says you because that would be bad, but no, but your people are evil. Because they sided with the enemy eons ago, and that you are inferior to just my kind or to all species, shall we say? And of course, she responds with like, hey, so by proxy, your people, that means you, right? And so Bronwyn gets upset, saying, I'm like, hey, what are you talking about? And he goes with the response of like, yeah, well, that's why I'm here and not at the Watchtower. Is I'm like, okay, you're evil and inferior, but I'm here because I kind of like you. I've seen this situation before. Have you guys, I don't know if you remember or have watched Schindler's List, but do you remember the scene where Ralph Fiennes' character Amon Goth has that one Jewish girl that he has his eyes on, and it's a very like tense, dark scene where like I think she was like bathing or whatever, and he's like, and he makes the line of like, I know you're not strictly human in the strictest sense of the word, and we could never actually truly be together because but I kind of like to touch you in your loneliness and be with you, and so I'm like. This is the villain of that movie. He is a vile sentimentality, and like that's basically what Arondir is saying to Bronwyn. Or am I reading that wrong? Like you're evil and inferior, and we could never truly be together. But I'm gonna hang out with you because I kind of like you. Is that basically what happened in Schindler's List? For those of you who watched it, right? But anyway, the meteor interrupts that and it falls in from the sky, and so that's like, oh, okay, so now we have this cow situation. That was weird. Now we have a meteor crashing. What's gonna happen? That ends episode 1. Going on to episode 2. Okay, so yeah, again, stuff happening between like interspersing between Galadriel and the elves. We go to Arondir. So yeah, Arondir. It's kind of. Again, there's a night has kind of fallen in this situation. It was kind of daytime sunset originally when the cow incident happened, but now it took a while to go to like the nearby village, so it's kind of the sun is a bit setting, it's getting dark, and that would be great if the I can get the lighting situation is like it's dark, it's night, you want to get that, but and there are things in cinema that you kind of put away with. Okay, for instance, like sound in space. If you're having a space battle, there would be no sound because where would the sound waves travel through for you to hear that? So I'm like, okay, sound in space makes, in cinematography, makes the battle scene in space sound cooler. Okay, I'm willing to suspend that disbelief. So, you know, like, we accept that. That's fine. It's an improvement of what's not actually possible. You know, like, in a night sequence, I kind of like when it's dark. I get it, it's dark, but I would at least like to see what's happening, you know, but so that we as the audience can know. But if you want to say that the people there are a bit dark and they can't see what's going on, so that at least they believe that they can't see what's going on, but at least we the audience can see what happened. That's just a personal pet peeve of mine. Not to say that you can't do that in movies, you know, like where we the audience has a tendency where even we don't know what's happening on. I'm pretty sure they did that in like the Alien movies. You know, like where it's dark, like where is the alien coming from? But again, we're talking about medieval fantasy, so we're going to come back to this one here. There is, in this particular scene, we can see somewhat. There is a hole under one of the houses, which, by the way, they go to and they see that the houses are kind of destroyed. You know, there's no humans around anywhere or whatever, so they're trying to figure out what's going on. The animals aren't, well, maybe it's because, I don't know if it's because they can't see the animals. That's one thing we can see as the audience. We can see that certain animals are fully decapitated. So, but they postulate that a ground shake did this. Yeah, right, not an earthquake, it's a ground shake. Again, what is with the words here? But anyway, ground shake destroyed some of the buildings, decapitated the animals, and made all the humans disappear. Because yeah, they're not like under the rubble or anything, or along with the bodies. No, all the humans are not found. The animals are still there, but they're dead, and the buildings are kind of in shambles. 100% ground shake did this. And I also just want to say that, reading certain people's comments on things of what happens, so they would make great points. One of them made like, okay, tectonic plates, which I'm assuming is how a ground shake would happen, unless they're different from our earthquakes. But whether it is going over or under or sliding, when you have enough friction to get the actual land itself to move, to cause the earth, the ground to shake, like that travels a distance. Like I don't know the full range. I don't know seismology, like how this works, but like I know that it has a fairly good distance range and it can last a fairly good while. So if a ground shake happened in this particular area, in the village that is just maybe a couple hours away, I'm pretty sure they would have felt something, right? Unless ground shakes are different in this universe. But this is your world building here, so who am I to judge this? So, Arondir is going off and, investigating this ground shake that happened to destroy all this, but we see in one of the buildings, they look down and they see that there's this big hole that right underneath one of the buildings, like the wood floor is like splintered, and they have this hole right here. They look over it and they see like, oh, there's a tunnel. There I'm like, oh, well, this is a development. And again, some very good point brought up with some dialogue, and then some very weird dialogue right after it. This was no ground shake. Someone dug this passage. All right, brilliant on you, Arondir. Great. Yeah, okay, don't know why you would think a ground shake would do this, but all right, you've found the tunnel. Now it's right, so that's not a ground shake. Someone dug this passage, obviously. Okay, not super brilliant, but okay, we're in the right direction here. Okay, fine. That was the good dialogue, by the way. We have a Bronwyn following up right here, so we have, this was no ground shake. Someone dug this passage. Or something. Men did not dig this passage. Time out. Excuse me. Bronwyn, how do you know this? As far as we have established, the only inhabitants in this region are humans. Granted, there are elves here, but they seem to be like a very minor population as overseers of this region. So, you've established, okay, humans, small population of elves, that's all we've seen. Now, granted, in the show we have seen dwarves and Harfoots, but again, we're focusing on this particular arc, so I'm like, okay, in this particular, like, based on this region, we have only seen humans. And you say, something dug this passage. So, again, not to say that, like, okay, not even, like, humanoid, but okay, maybe some, like, creature, some burrowing mammoth of burrowing under the ground. A super mega boll weevil. I don't know. So I don't even know what that creature would look like or what it is. But hey, like because I think in the Hobbit movies they had like the wereworms or something that shoot out of the ground that used to that tunnel. There was something. Okay, so maybe she has some idea of like some creature. It would be nice to see her kind of deduce that and show us to the audience. I'm like, oh, you see these certain particular markings. These are the markings of this type of creature. They always leave that when they tunnel. So obviously, this is what dug this tunnel and not men. And like, it would be nice to see that. Like, you can do that. That's fine. I grant that. It's just that we as the audience would love to see that so that we can follow you and not be like, where are you pulling this from? Where that, like, something dug this that men did not. Okay, like, you can do it. It's just, this one, you did not set up this one right here. You just want to jump straight to payoff, which is the payoff is that you want to inform the audience that, spoiler, orcs are doing stuff in there, which based on all of the trailer art, we could probably guess that orcs are about, but they wanted to make it a surprise to the audience that orcs are here. Again, weird stuff. So, Arondir, he says, hey, go warn your people, I'm going to go investigate. I guess, because I guess, like, okay, so, like, even though his elf mission has been, disbanded, like, he's like, hey, you know what, it seems like bad things are happening here. It's my job to kind of investigate certain dark dealings, so you know what, even though I'm not needed here, I'm just going to go anyway. And he says, I must follow the passage in the other direction. No duh. I'm like, okay, if you have the ground here, the building is here, and there's a tunnel going up here, and if you're up on this end, then naturally we'll follow it in the other direction. So like, I'm just going to go follow the tunnel. Or we'll just say like, I'm going to go see what's at the other end. Or something like, where some other, that one bit of that like in the other direction makes it sound weird. Now I'm assuming they said that line because what we actually see is we have the ground there looking down, we see the hole right there, and then it seems from where the hole is, there seems to be a tunnel network going there. So there is the tunnel, and then the hole comes out right up under the house, right here. So I'm like, okay, when he jumps down, he says, I'm going to follow in the other direction, meaning, which again, also as you're like, which direction is the other direction? There's one going this way and one going this way. So how do you know which way is the source? Now it could be easy, you could have easily figured this, like, hey, where are the footprints? Where are the claw marks of whatever creature dug this similar? Oh, they seem to be going this way, so I'll head in the opposite direction to the source. Like you just, it would take like 10 seconds out of your time. You could just do something quick. So I'm like, oh, the tracks seem to go this way. I'm gonna go head back to the source. Done. We're good. Figured it out. But I'm just gonna follow the passage in the other direction. How do you know which way is that? That's all I gotta say. So yeah, I'm gonna come. This is like, you come across a fork in the road. Which way do you go? I'm gonna follow the fork in the other direction. It's called a fork for a reason. Like, what is the other direction here? Like, you don't know which way the enemy went. She comes with the line that says, you don't know what is down there. And he says, that is why I must go. I'm going to be a little bit more lenient on this line because I'm like, okay, I get it. She's trying to say, like, it's dangerous. Why are you doing this? And he's like, and he's trying to say the line like, hey, we don't know what we're dealing with. I'm going to go investigate, but it may be dangerous. Again, why couldn't you just have said something along the line of that? Basically what it's saying is that like something down there could possibly kill you, and you respond with, yep, that's why I'm going. Again, if you really think about it, that's what he's saying, but just the way I said, you don't know what is down there, that's why I must go. So it's a little bit weird, but I'm going to be more lenient on that one. I don't know, it just, for me, it kind of works. But then, yeah, but still, it is a bit weird for that piece of line. After much Galadriel and Halbrand stuff, so we are back to Bronwyn. She is skedaddled off to go the villagers and warn them. Wait a second. It was nighttime when I saw it. maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but wasn't it daytime when she went to? Because I know it was around morning the second time she went back to the tavern, but I want to say like the other time she went to the tavern was morning as well. Was it? I want to say that there was like light coming from the windows. Maybe I was wrong for continuity, but anyway, she goes to the tavern where I guess she is trying to inform people that I'm like, hey, this is what we found, like, and none of the people are having it, by the way. Like she says, like we saw the village, like the buildings were kind of destroyed, the animals were kind of killed, and no humans were found. And what do they postulate? Yeah, they postulate sinkhole. Yeah, that was one of their fears. Like, no, it was probably a sinkhole because they said, like something, there was a tunnel underneath the house, so maybe like a sinkhole swallowed them up. Yeah, sure, sinkhole swallowed up an entire village. Yeah, but yeah, they've come and said I've seen landslides less dangerous. So like they're trying to figure like maybe trying to hinting on like, okay, it was you and that elf. Like we can't really trust you because you were with that particular elf. Whatever, that whole animosity right there. But again, reading some of the comments that people were talking about the whole Rings of Power episode, that's woman made the brilliant check. Like I said, like, hey, when some sort of disaster comes across a particular area of inhabitants of people, we kind of have this morbid curiosity. We want to go see what happens. And I can vouch from personal experience. Back when I was living in East Peoria, a while back, I was in like my early mid-teenage years back then. And back then we had a tornado that went like right near a house. We was like a couple streets down from where we were. I had touched down right there. And like, so it was kind of like in our own neighborhood per se. So we wanted to not only like see the damage, but we also kind of wanted to help out and see like what the damage was, and see people needed help as well. But I'm like, okay, like when something like big like that and causes a big disturbance in there, we kind of have this weird curiosity about it that we kind of want to go and investigate, see what happened, what all the destruction, what happened. Not to mention that there are people who are these weird people who like the tornado's coming down. Let's go outside and film it, Bobby. Like that's us now. I'm sure probably some people, when there were certain disasters, that people were out there doing that the same thing. But anyway, that's a topic for another discussion. So nobody wants to go and investigate. Like everyone in the tavern, which I guess I don't know, because maybe Waldrick is kind of like the person that's like, hey, no, listen. Like, let's not get out of control or whatever. It probably was nothing. Let's ignore, like nobody postulates, like, is on the version like, hey, we're kind of a bit worried. Maybe we should send, like, an investigation team over to see what's happening. Maybe we should, like, investigate what's going on. Should we do something about this, about our particular village? Should we, fortify? Should we leave? None of that is postulated. Say like, no, yeah, you were drunk, you were seeing stuff. Yeah, obviously no liquor was involved, but it's fine. We're just gonna ignore that for some reason, apparently. Yeah. Also, this is where we get to another question that I have here. My question is, why doesn't Bronwyn goes to the tavern area? So I'm assuming, again, leading to my theory that like Waldrick seems to have a bit of say in the town, because of like, my question is like, why doesn't he go to like the mayor of the village, or if there's like a captain of the guard, there's no constable or governor, there's not like the old wise woman of the village that people look up to, like, no, she goes to the tavern here where apparently there's like no form of government at all. You've established that you've originally had apparently some sort of king that ruled over you. So maybe the king was not a particular this village, but of this whole region, so whatever his form of government, if there's like a castle or a palace somewhere. But like, okay, if all these separate villages probably have their own little municipal lord or, ruler over them, their earl or whatever, to govern them and report back to the king, so there must be some form of governing authority, right? You've set up that, right? But now apparently, no, it's just all free-for-all. We kind of do whatever we want. again, doesn't really make sense. I'm getting a little bit of a headache. Woo. Alright, so, meanwhile, we're back at the village. So I'm guessing this is currently happening while Bronwyn is at the tavern talking about the herring. We cut back to Theo. And he's at his home, whatever, do a second. And he hears what he thinks are mice underneath the house, you know, scurrying about. And he gets really mad and he just starts going to town on them. I think it's a fire poker that he grabs. But he just picks up this thing and he's just going to town, breaking the board to try to get these mice. So I'm like, whoa, settle down, boy. Okay, like, I know mice can be annoying and irritating. I have a bunch of other, like, creepy critters that around this place, mostly squirrels. But, I can understand, I can hear them every once in a while. So I'm like, okay, I get that. But, like, this kid just goes nuts on them. And why he's, again, of course, I get the point of it, because I was going to ask, why does he completely destroy the floor trying to get at where he thinks these mice are? But I'm like, okay, of course, that's the way how he finds out the secret tunnel that these orcs have been digging now under their village now. So I'm like, why did I bother asking why that question? Yeah. So yeah, he discovers that there is looks to be like some sort of tunnel underneath, or maybe a sinkhole, I don't know, under his home, and he's kind of looking to see what's going on, and he sees a pair of eyes kind of like shift and kind of look up at him, and it freaks him out, like, what's happening right here? Like, we as the audience, I'm guessing supposed to, they still haven't, this is the second episode, we still haven't seen what's doing this. I'm like, when I think we all know they're orcs, but anyway, so apparently he goes to hide, because that's when Bronwyn finds him. But first we have a reindeer. Cut back to a reindeer, so he's, went to go off the tunnel network. So he's crawling through the tunnels and seeing what's going there. They had a lantern, by the way, because this is his only light source. Because, he's in a full, complete tunnel, and it's, like, fairly crammed. He can kind of, like, crawl, kind of half walk into there. And, so, it's like it's dirt, and walls all completely around him. And it's going down the tunnel. Again, set up tunnels with complete dirt roof underneath, overhead, so that no sun can get to them. We've established that. Set that up. That'll come for later. But he's crawling around and he has this lantern, and it kind of, his elven senses go off, like, what's going on? He kind of, he might hear something, like, what's going on? He thinks he sees something, coming after him from behind him, coming this way. And apparently there seems to be, there's, rats or something as well, also, in the tunnel network as well. And they're kind of freaked out as well. They were kind of, running along with him, trying to get away from him. Like, oh, okay, something bad's happening. What is this? What could it possibly be? And we got to this situation where, it's a very small, the ground just kind of comes a little bit where it's very hard to crawl through. And apparently, once he gets through to the other side, he immediately falls into this, watery grotto, kind of cavern a little bit. It seems like to be, again, it would be lovely to see that. The only reason we know about that is because when he falls through, we hear the splash of water, because, again, it's so dark, we couldn't see that happening. I get it, again, it's to say, you're completely underground. Your only light source is this, little lantern that you have. It's in the heat of the moment. Oh, what's things going on? So, okay, I can understand. There's certain times where we don't see what's happening. I'm not saying you can't do that. It's just that it just feels weird in, this type of scenario, of this type of genre of film, that you would want to see what's happening. But again, that's just my personal pet peeve going on there. You could be different. But he splashes into here, so he pulls out and he kind of crawls out, and he can hear what's going on. He's backed up against the wall, and he pulls out his dagger to see what's going on. And then, oh surprise, the wall behind him is fake, and these hands come out and pull him inside him. Okay, he's gone. So okay, so we saw hands over there. So obviously this is not type of like weird animal creature burrowing or anything. It seems to be humanoids. So again, it's orcs. We were not surprised by this, but I want to draw out, you know, the suspense. Like I get, you know, the saying like you don't want to show, like the whole Jaws theory. You don't show the shark immediately. You know, like sometimes you kind of build it. So I can understand where you don't want to show the monster. I get that, but you know, it's like with simple humanoid prosthetics, I'm assuming it'll be easier just to show that. But we do get a cool reveal now because we have, excuse me, here we are. Back to Bronwyn. She is done dealing with her tavern situation. Nobody seems to believe her, so like, oh, darn it. Well, guess I'll have to try again next time, sweetheart. So she goes home, and I want to say it's that old trope of like the door is kind of like busted a bit and like kind of ajar, and so she's like figuring like, oh, something's wrong with the house. She goes inside, and we see that, you know, like there's quite a now there's like a big hole in the floor, and there seems to be like some busted up furniture a little bit. There's like claw marks. And also I'm like, ooh, something happened. And of course, you know, she kind of saw what the original hole was like. So I'm like, oh dear, she's like, what the heck is going on? Nothing seems to be going off right at the moment. It's like, okay, so what do? She finds Theo in this like kind of like small like little cupboard type thing, like only small enough for him to like crawl in and shut the door right here. There's claw marks clearly visible all around the door. Someone trying to get over there. He peeks the little door open and basically says, "Shh, get help." Now, I get this is where the part of that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but because I am not a mother, I would think that the motherly instinct would kick in at this point. I'm very well aware of certain situations that happen when mother and their child, situations may arise where the female frame is capable of doing some incredibly tremendous things when they feel that their child is threatened, whether physically, emotionally, verbally, whatever. When that situation arises, they go feral. Okay, it's a lot like it's kind of an instinct that they have. Like if you come between, there's a scene we have. Do not come between a she-bear and her cubs. Okay, so I would assume we've already established. You know, her character is, regardless of this whole nurturing aspect. Okay, like you've established this character, she is a mother. So I would assume these instincts would kick in, but we'll see what happens. Theo says, "Shh, go get help." She decides to make her way to the door to go get help, apparently, but she's hearing some noises from the tunnel. She decides to go by the nearby closet and hide. Okay, we'll go with it. So she's in this, and we got this very cool, I will say, this cool reveal of this orc coming up. We see the claws, you know, seeing whatever. So I'm like, okay, so hey, good on you. All right, I like that kind of slow reveal. It was nice. Didn't know I had to draw it out until midway through the second episode, but like that was a cool reveal. All right, this orc through, you know, okay, but that does raise a question here. So the previous village was attacked, which I'm assuming it would have to be a coordinated event to get have all these whatever. I'm assuming it would just be one tunnel. I'm assuming you'd have like a couple different tunnels in place to then spring, and then you all attack, get the people. You know, spoiler, they're taking them back to home base. You know, hence why all the humans are missing from the previous village. So I'm like, okay, so I'm assuming it had to be a coordinated attack in multiple areas to pull this thing off. But yet this orc decides to just alone spoil the surprise, spring the trap, and reveal himself. Which I guess you could theorize of okay, maybe there is this kid right here, or he hears some things and he doesn't want his cover blown, so he's going to handle it right now before things escalate. I guess you could, but then okay, it just seems weird, alright? But anyway, this orc comes out, and he's snooping around, and like, I thought I smelled something. What was that? That's not what he says, but you get the idea of what's going on. Anyway, finds Bronwyn in the cupboard. You know, big reveal. Oh, pulls open the door. She's there. What's going on? So, you know, she freaks out. She's kind of to run and defend herself. Theo naturally is I'm like, hey, that's my mom. He busts out of the small cupboard, so he's gonna go after there. And also, I want to give him props. This was a very cool sequence to show the strength and ferocity that these orcs have. You know, to get across the room to go lunge at the boy, at Theo, the orc puts his hands like on the table and just flings it across the room, and it slides and hits the wall and basically, I don't think it like a busts apart, but like tosses about. I'm like, okay, this orc has some strength to it, and I'm like, he's got some ferocity. Like, do not go on him one-on-one, okay? Like the bad news here. Like, so I don't know if this is just this one particular orc or this is a general for all orcs here, but that was pretty cool. I'm like, don't mess with this guy. Again, he is strong and fast and ferocious when the plot needs it, but when it doesn't, he's very slow, dumb, and weak, because he was going after the boy. The boy is trying to climb the ladder up to go into the rafter situation, because there's like a barn and they have supplies up there. But I'm familiar with medieval structures. You know, like they have a kind of loft area where they can hold stuff there. Okay, yeah, sure, fine. And so he's trying to climb the ladder to go up into that region. They were trying to climb up to him, and the mother has this. I don't know if it's a full farm implement. It kind of looks like a saw. So it is probably about this size as well, this whole blade, but it's kind of like curved and it has like teeth on it, so I'm thinking it's some sort of like saw, like a wood saw or something to chop things up, but it's got like this weird, it's got like this handle that's like this, and then the handle curves down so that you can easily just saw the blade, as you know, but obviously the blade would be like this. But there, so that you can cut it there, but I'm holding it so that it looks like that. So she kind of has this like weird blade implement, which kind of looks cool. And she runs through the orc as the orc is trying to claw out after the boy coming up after her. So he reacts like, oh god, what was this? Spins around, and now he's flung her across the room, whatever. But oh no, it seems that the handle that when he was stabbed in the back, after spinning around, seems to got caught in the rungs of the ladder, and he just can't get out. So he's not strong enough or able to pull himself out of this, but he's completely strong to grab a hold of the table, fling it across the room, and have it flip over. Again, I've never been fully stabbed through the back, so I don't know the strength of what it would take to try and lift and maneuver stuff out of here. So there's quite possible that it is a different situation altogether, but I would think that as overall strength, I'm assuming that you could easily find a way to get out of this. But again, no, we'll keep moving here. Theo, while up on the rafters, they have this kind of pulley system that they can have rope, and they can like haul things up and down or whatever. So he has this rope and he lassos it basically around the guy's neck, and so Theo jumps down, pulling on the rope, which now hoists him up by the neck. And so like, oh, okay, now the orc is being hanged. So, alright, good on you, boy, trying to solve the situation using your wits. Of course, how does this happen? The rope seems to be, frayed at some point, and so the rope snaps, freeing the orc. The orc falls down, and conveniently, they're now being lifted up. The handle has been freed, so now he's full to maneuver around and do what he needs to do. So, we've established that he's going after Bronwyn, and initially, so he's very strong and ferocious. Going after the kid, he was able to fling the table out of the way and run after him. But now that he's free and the sword has been impaled, now he's all slow and I'm gonna get you, boy. And he's very super slow, and he has his shoulders out and his head out very quickly in a situation that can very easily be chopped off. Because that's when Bronwyn comes by and slices his head off. So okay, you set up that these orcs are first. Now, maybe it's because he's been stabbed and impaled, and so some of his strength, and he's trying to, he doesn't have that full strength ability, and he's kind of hobbling along and saying I'm conserving energy or whatever. Okay, but it just seemed weird that all of a sudden he's just doing the super exaggerated slow action at this point, so that Bronwyn can get another like sickle or something to chop his head off. But also, the shot of that was weird because you get the point. Like, okay, we know the sequence, right? We've seen it before. Somebody is reveling in the kill, right? He's coming up, he's about to do the killing blow. Like, he's got whatever implement that he has, and maybe bare hands or whatever. He's like, I'm gonna get you. And then we have the sequence of the other secondary person coming to save whatever victim is going to be. They have whatever device to either run through or to chop, or maybe they have a rifle to come around the corner and or whatever. And so we have the one that's coming around. They go up to go do it. Then the killer, whatever, always has that, you know, that typical look. And then, boom, you know, the thing happens and, oh, the day is saved. Great. Yeah, well, that's not what happens here. If I remember correctly, we have this sequence of where the orc is coming to go, I'm gonna get you. And then we have the cut back to the side view of him going, what is happening? And then we have Bronwyn running up, taking the sword, and then slicing. I'm like, okay, no, that's not how you do that. You intersperse on over that leads up there, because if you cut to guy reacting and then you have that person raise the implement and then try to bring it down with a yell, there are times where you can react to that. And the orc, because I don't think he had a weapon at this point, so he couldn't have done anything, but hey, at least dodge out of the way at least. But no, it's a dramatic stuff where the sword is brought down and the arc of the sword being brought down is immediately spliced in with Bronwyn slamming the head of the orc onto the table in the tavern, saying, like, as a boom boss moment. So, you know, like, that is a cool scene. I'll admit you can do that, you know, like if you want to edit that so that, like, you're killing the enemy and in that same motion it cuts to them, you know, like, boom, proof, I did it, evidence, you know, like, it can work, but, you know, it just didn't seem like it pulled it off the best way. But alright, so we now have proof of that some bad things are happening. So what is going to do? Orc, head, bad things. Like I said, what are we going to do? So we have a couple different options. So they choose the option of, like, their initial choice is to go, we'll discuss the options later, but their initial choice is like, hey, you know what? The elves have been disbanded, you know, so they've left, they're leaving, they're going away. That means they have this, you know, small fortification right there, you know, defensible position. Let's all pack up and go there. Pretty smart move, I'll grant them that. Why the heck they wouldn't stay there? We'll talk about that later. So they all decide to, like, you know what, we're gonna go head for the Elven Watchtower up there. So Southlanders, they're all packing up, interspersed between Galadriel and Halbrand stuff. They're all packing up to go to the Watchtower, and this is when Theo, you know, he's packing his belongings, and he has the broken sword hilt. And I don't remember how he learns about this, where he accidentally cuts himself, or like he drops and stabs him, or because in the initial attack he's been hurt and some blood falls on it. But he figures out that the sword, when blood is you know, used to do things to cause injury, it's like the blade reforms into an actual sword. So all of a sudden I'm like, this is news, and this will bring up plot point later. But that ends episode 2. Let's talk about episode 3 and 4. So Arondir wakes up. He's in these trench situation, and so like he's seeing that there's a bunch of these humans, which are, I'm guessing they would have to be slaves of these orcs that are, you know, mining this, you know, tunnel network that he seems to be, because, you know, like, it's fairly wide, something he can't see up above, that they can all walk under this big tarp, right, that they have there. So it's like, so that's how, you know, big this, you know, this tunnel thing is right here. Trench. It's a trench, not a tunnel. I'm sorry, that's not gonna, I apologize, I'm probably gonna be calling it a tunnel the entire time, but, you know, we know the difference, but I don't know if they do. So he's under the situation, and he's seeing all these people and orcs over there. So there's quite a big hubbub of humanoids in a mixture of humans and orcs and also elves, because, you know, he happens to wake up and he goes to find, and he finds his captain and armpit elf. Again, sorry for the name, don't know it, but again doesn't matter because he's about to be killed. So armpit elf deserved better. And I was like, oh wow, so like where how'd you guys get here? Which does beg the question. So I'm like, okay, apparently it seems that the later on we realize that it has something to do with the volcano. But so I'm like, okay, so their orcs seem to be moving in this sort of direction, right? Now we know that there is an opening up here to go to later Ravanian right there, but later also in the show it says that that there is a river situation that certain boats are able to go, and we're able to cut through a pass to get to the south here. So if the elves are leaving, I'm assuming it would be like the little pass through and then head up, as opposed to say, I mean, you could, if you wanted to, just go straight up north and then cut across. So if you want to say that these particular elves were deciding to go up past the volcano to get out, and it was around this area that they got captured, then probably like I could believe it. But I would, again, that they have not set up at this current yet that you could go out this way, but it just seems weird. They have no setup for why both the captain and armpit elf is suddenly a part of the orc slave community. Like, how did that get captured? Where were they? What led them to this scenario? How did they meet? None of that. They're just around here, looks around and says like, oh, he spots them. That's it. That's all we got. So, well, so they're together now, apparently. So they are being, there's no situation how they got there. So, that's the setup there. Going to, oh yeah, there's some wonderful Galadriel dialogue that we're going to skip there. Thank God. We're just focusing on the Southlands. I just said that there was, so we're skipping some bad dialogue. Now we have this dialogue. This is, okay, so Arondir is meeting with his companions, saying here, communicating, trying to feel like, oh, what's going on, because they want to figure out like what's happening. What are the orcs doing? How did you get here? Are you okay? Are you hurt? Like that sort of neutral thing. We have this wonderful piece of dialogue. This tunnel must be how they escaped our detection and how they shield themselves from sunlight. Really, Sherlock? Would not have figured that one out. Like, you have better uses for dialogue and time on screen to give us information that we already know? Like it would seem obvious from this that this was the like how they were able to like, okay, why the elves were not able to spot the orcs. I will show an image of your still like of what they don't see, and please tell me how this works. I found an image of this. But so they're figuring out like the orcs here must use the tunnel network to hide from the people on the surface, and how they avoid sunlight, because apparently it is established that the orcs in this universe, because again, it's not Tolkien, whatever the universe that they set up here, have an adverse reaction to sunlight. Very akin to what we know about as vampires. Now, take a little side scroll down here. Vampires, generally, as far as the oldest lore, were okay being out in the sun. They didn't really like it, but they were significantly weaker in sunlight. And then certain variations came on where like sunlight actually physically harms them and can can be used as a weapon to actually fight back and kill vampires in case so. But in this one, it seems it's more of the latter. If they go outside, their skin has a sort of like blistering, peeling, there's like kind of smoke coming off of their body, which looks kind of cool, cinematically speaking, but it does raise a whole ton of questions, which is, one, you've set up, you can dig completely underground tunnels, why are you building this main thoroughfare with a system where you have beams and tarp that can probably have holes and weak spots that sunlight can get through? Wouldn't you just dig a couple more feet down and then continue? So I'm like, okay, the cost effect ratio here. Like, I know you're going to spend a little bit more time and effort trying to dig further down and then move around. You have more dirt, trying to go, like about as easy to get things away from the surface and whatever. But I'm like, okay, but the cost of resources you actually use to do that, you save on getting wooden beams and cloth trying to cover up the sun. So like, I think it kind of balances out, wouldn't you say? But that would be putting logic into this show here. So yeah, the orcs have a very severe reaction to sunlight. We've established that, and they've escaped our detection with this tunnel/trench network they have here. Oh yeah, this is a very fun, spontaneous thing they just pull out of the ether. They suspect that the orcs are looking for something. Because why else would you be building a massive tunnel network? Of course, you're looking for something. They say they must be looking for something. Some sort of weapon, perhaps. Again, where the heck did you pull this out of? So like, you are building a tunnel/trench, and you're obviously on the hunt looking for something. Wow, I guess I've been thinking about this completely all wrong. Apparently Indiana Jones and all his archaeological expeditions were completely wrong. You don't start at one location where you think the artifact might be and then fan out. No. You just start at one place and then you make a tunnel, and if it's not there, well, then you just keep going in the tunnel. You don't just spread out, you just go in one direction, right? Because that's how you look for something, right? Again, this is clearly a line for the audience to tell us something, that the orcs are looking for something. Because like, apparently, I guess they cannot figure out how to tell us, or even the old show don't tell. That'd be great. But yeah, so hey audience, hey, pay attention. You listening? The orcs, they're looking for something. Okay, we told you that, and it's very possible it might be a weapon. Now the orcs seem to be like very dark creatures. Okay, so that they don't like sun. They seem very nefarious and evil, and they're looking for a weapon. We told you that. So where else do we know of a dark weapon found in this region that somebody might have? Okay, remember the sword, the hilt that the boy has? It might be possible that they're looking for this. Okay, so audience, pay attention. This is probably what they're looking for. I get they're. I know there's a pilot where you need to tell the audience enough to get it on. There's a language of like, okay, you tell the audience too much, and then you tell the audience not enough. I don't know what is the greater sin, but I feel like I would rather watch the movie and having a little bit moment of confusion to figure out like, oh, did I miss something, and be able to like, if I had the capability to like rewind, whether like if it's a movie theater or whatever, like a streaming service, just go back and say like, oh okay, I guess something happened. It'd been nice of them to show that, but hey, at least they trusted the audience to help figure along and follow the path of what happened, rather than just be bluntly expressing it to our face. These are the beats of what's happening, and you better pay attention because they're going to come back later. So I hope you are paying attention as I repeat it once again, that this thing will come back. So did you audience, did you get it? All right. Now, if you remember that, we're going to move on to the next scene. Like, it's just, I'm not a filmmaker. But I'm aware of these things, and I feel like that. Don't ask me to make Rings of Power or like how I would do it. Although there are some bits and pieces where I think you could do this, but yeah, like I know bad things when I see them. Okay, I'm like, okay, that obviously you could have handled that better. That was a mistake, and I'm just pointing it out to you guys. So they must be looking for a weapon of some kind. Yeah. And like, okay, I will indulge myself a little bit here. I just saw this like there is a little bit of spot in my mind. Okay, so I came up with this little skit idea. Whatever. So okay, here we go. The elves. Okay, so you want to establish that the elves meet up and they're trying to figure out what's going on, but you need the audience and our characters as well to come to the conclusion that the orcs are looking for something mayhaps be something quite dangerous. They, because eventually it'll also lead into, to Adar, the eventual leader of the orcs as well. So, okay, so think about it here. This is just my humble little skit rendition of what happens. So, the elves are, and then they're kind of forced to help dig, sort of like continue the trench going on. And so we have some orcs coming about, and they're like, alright, dig your lot! And then we have another orc come by and reporting to another one, so they're like, we can't seem to be getting any progress here. And the other orc comes over and like, listen, you pile of schrock. I am not the only one whose head is on the chopping block if we don't find it. So we are gonna dig unless you want to personally tell Adar that we have failed. So like, something like that. So then the elves overhear this situation and be like, oh, okay, so the orcs apparently seem to be looking for something, and there seems to be some leader named Adar. So I'm like, that was just quick thing that I just popped up, and I was like, okay, do something like that, rather than just have the elves just spontaneously pull out. Then I'm like, oh, the orcs here must be looking for something, and they're looking for a weapon. Like, at least in that rendition, the orcs, at least in my version, is explicitly say, but of course he's not telling the elves this information, he's telling there's a particular orc who's kind of fed up with all of this and say, hey, we're not finding it, but the elves happen to overhear this. So I'm like, okay, as pitiful as that was, at least some of it makes sense that the elves are able to come to the conclusion, then we, the audience, oh, okay, something bigger obviously is going on here. What is it up? But, so, that was just, my little take on that one right there. But another piece of dialogue here. Okay, one of the elves, I forget if it's the captain or if it's Armpit Elf, but mentions they, being the orcs, have been ransacking village after village. I'm assuming because they're able to figure that out because of the vast quantities of humans that they have in this sort of tunnel network. That seem like, oh, that must be the conclusion. They have been ransacking village to village. And you are the elves in the outpost, watchtower, supposed to look out for any nefarious deeds, and none of you spotted village after village just disappearing and being wiped off, and the villagers, like, none of you picked up on this. Great job! Great job! Great job! Yeah, so this is the part where they mention Adar. So, apparently the leader of the orcs has a name, and it's called Adar. And this is where, again, they spontaneously presume that it's like, okay, we heard of Adar, we report to Adar or some situation, and then it's like, they mentioned that seems like it'd be an elven name. I think it's kind of, the orcs refer to him as father, but it has an elven name. And they immediately assume, they say, Sauron was said to have many names. So again, as far as the show in general, sidestepping, picking back a little bit here, again, as far as the show is, Galadriel is the only one who suspects that Sauron is still alive and active. Even in this particular arc, no one thinks that Sauron is still around. So why the heck, when you suddenly hear someone say Adar, you immediately think, oh no, that can't be his name, he must be Sauron! Like, oh yeah, that one guy who died millennia ago, yeah, it must be him. Like, the only thing it has to be is a Sauron misdirect, because that's what the theory, not a theory, the theme of this entire Rings of Power is like, who is Sauron? Oh, maybe it's this guy. Maybe it's the guy who fell from the sky. Maybe it's Adar. Maybe it's some other person right here, when really it was so obvious who it was. So, again, why would they immediately think that this elven named nobody, that as far as they know, that they're just now hearing, could be the super big bad lieutenant of the Omega guy that tried to take over the world eons ago? I'm like, oh yeah, must be that Dark Lord right there. No idea. Yeah, I mentioned here, at least in the Hobbit movies, with as much as problems as it does have, I still enjoy them, by the way. But the White Council that convenes even Saruman and even some of the other members, I think Elrond as well, were like, did not jump to the conclusion that this dark sorcerer, necromancer character in Dol Guldur was immediately Sauron. They postulated, I'm like, whoa, this is probably just some foul sorcerer dabbling in dark magic. You know, like let's not conclude that the enemy has returned. I'm like, what proof do we have of that? At least in those type of movies, they had some sense. You know, like, which, you know, spoiler for those of you who haven't seen the Hobbit movies. You know, like who that person actually was. So it's like, you know, like, I postulated, you know, like, okay, it would be kind of fun to deal like, okay, the elves at the Watchtower have been captured by this orc army, and they find out that it seems like the leader of the orcs has an elf name, maybe possibly an elf. So I'll be thinking like, ooh, this could be a fun thing to go. Like, did the elves have like a certain renegade or a traitor at one point, or did they have dealings with somebody who like left the business and like wanted to do all this thing, and then all of a sudden he's come back and he's decided with the orcs now, and so they had to deal with this. I'm like, that'll be a fun, cool arc to deal with. Which, I mean, to spoiler, so yeah, the Adar is not Sauron, by the way. He's just an elf, which I must say I did find Adar very agreeable. To be honest, I liked him. I liked the character of Adar, and I sympathized him with far more than Galadriel, who's supposed to be her hero. Okay. It's bad when I'm siding with the villain. Okay. So, cutting back here. We have this tunnel network. Trench network. Whatever. It's a tunnel now. I'm not going to try and correct myself here. So, tunnel. It's a tunnel. And they are, you know, continuing to dig around, and they have this, you know, the tarps covering over them, and they've got this whole bunch of people working on it, and they have this tree that's growing among their tunnel network that's kind of blocking their path right there. So I'm like, okay, moment of the plot. What do we do? Here are the choices. We got to a tree. Trees that are blocking their way. So what do? The elf, one of the elves, I think it was the captain, mentioned, I'm like, we should go around the tree because it'll take less time. So I'm like, okay. You know, obviously there's the difficulty of trying to remove the tree out of the way. We could just go around it. I'm like, okay, cool enough. But then the orcs are like, no, we chop that thing down. You know, so I could see like, okay, so just they're set in their ways. But then I could think of like, okay, you know, like if you're wanting to have a little bit more timber, you know, to have a more frame network, to go more tarp as you're going along. So I'm like, okay, you need that tree chopped down for resources. So I'm like, cost benefit. So yeah, but whatever. The elves seem to be set up like, no, it has earned its place here, and we will not gonna chop this tree down. So I'm like, okay, so, you know, like, I know that it's kind of general fantasy things going on, that elves kind of have a connection with nature. So they were trying to say that the elves don't want to chop the tree down. So I'm like, okay, like, all right, in this universe, they have a connection with nature. They don't want to cut the tree. Like, okay, sure, I can believe that. But the thing is, because of what eventually leads up to this, is that Arondir eventually goes up to chop the tree down. Eventually, again, goes up to the ridge so they can chop, in other words, out of the tunnel. The very previous scene before this, which I probably should have mentioned, is that they had a discussion. That they was like, okay, listen, we need to figure out where we are at, what's going on. We need to look around the terrain to see what we're dealing with. Maybe if one of us can escape, then we can probably find some sort of reinforcements, because that is a thing like, okay, you know, like we've established there's the watchtower here, but you know, like this is a vast area. It would be kind of fun to have seen, you know, other watchtowers around, You know, like, okay, so this is like one watchtower for like this particular region, and there's one watchtower for that region, and there's a watchtower over here for this. So that maybe like, hey, there are other, you know, elves stationed around, so that you could like, hey, maybe find some other elves and sort of band together. So like, where else are they going to get like some sort of army to, you know, help come back and free the slaves, whatever. But you know, it would be cool to see that. But you know, like I could hypothesize it happening, but we'd never see that. But apparently they hypothesized like, okay, one of us at least needs to figure out what's going on, hopefully escape, and we'll come back with reinforcements and free us. So like that's a setup. So how do we get out of this tunnel situation so that we can go up and see what's going on without causing suspicion of the orcs to know what we're doing, because you know, like we gotta play it low key here. Then we come to the whole tree situation where the tree is in our way. We have which leads to the whole debacle of like, we will not kill the tree and chop it down. Like, yes, you are going to. This is where Armpit Elf dies, by the way. Yeah, there's a passing of water, and paper cut kills Armpit Elf, unfortunately. Yeah, the whatever implement, I did not get a good look at it, but yeah, one of the orc slashes the neck area of the elf, and I guess, which is weird. Okay, so couple things here. One, set up, okay, apparently for your cinematic portrayal, you're a bit squeamish about not showing blood and guts or whatever, and not showing, you know, like damage and destruction to the body or like the gore aspect. Again, later we see plenty of that. So I'm like, okay, so I have no idea what that setup was. But then also this payoff right here makes no sense, because I'm like, I thought you already established that from Arondir that wounds to your body heal of their own accord, and so you don't have doctors, because we just heal naturally, and then we just have a slight cut around the neck that you should be fine. But apparently he dies by about a small amount of blood. So like, okay, that was weird. By the way, Armpit Elf dies, totally underwhelming, and to not cause a bigger commotion and have any other more people die, Arondir volunteers to go and chop the tree down. So he goes up to the ridge to chop the tree down, like, oh, so now the orcs are letting you go out all the tunnels to let you chop that tree down? Why didn't you do this before? You just had a conversation that you needed an excuse to go out and see what's going on there, and the orcs literally gave you an opportunity to say like, hey, we need you to chop this tree down. You could have said, sure boss, grabbed an axe, and then just casually climbed up to the tree in the beginning, and just meanwhile taking notes of the terrain. And then as you know, you're bringing stuff down and going up and down, bringing the lumber back in for the goose to be like, you can reporting back, and then maybe as things are going up and going back up, maybe you can make a run for it, whatever. Like what? Okay, and yes, here it is. So we said Arondir goes to the ridge, climbs up on the tunnel so that they can chop down the tree, and we get a picture that I'm going to show you guys of what exactly this looks like. And I'm just going to put up the entire picture, so I'm going to disappear for a little bit, and this whole entire thing will be an image, but I'm just going to continue talking over this. But okay, here we go. You ready to see? So we've established the whole situation. They have a tunnel. They've avoided detection. The elves don't want to cut the tree down. And now we're going to chop the tree. You ready? Here's the image. Okay, so you know how a picture is worth 1,000 words? Yeah, I've got so many questions about this. Okay, so first off, you see how long that tunnel seems to be? Tunnel in quotation. You can't see me doing the quotation, right? You see this quotation I make with my claw hands? It means I don't believe you. Sorry, quote from like a movie. But yeah, see how long that is? How long have they been doing this? It must have taken them a while. So the elves did not spot any of this? How many villages they happen to go by in their path? Also, this is a very wide area. There's trees are down, there's smoke coming out, like the elves spotted none of this happening. The humans didn't happen to see and report something like, hey, some sort of suspicious happening over on the hill over there. Maybe we should inform people. It was having like no word spread about that. Also, the placement of the tree right here. Okay, so we see the tunnel, quotation, curving back there, and it's coming in this sort of direction right here. And you see that there is this big tree blocking their path. You couldn't have turned it back there like a couple of degrees off so that you would have avoided the tree if you wanted to save time. But apparently you just wanted to, well, maybe they just needed the lumber for some reason. But if that's the case, look at all the broken, chopped down trees right next to them. Look at all that. What happened there? I'm getting a loss for words here. Also, another thing that needs to be spoken of. Okay, so it's established that you need these sort of tarps because apparently you can't dig fully underground to protect you from the sun. So you need some form of stuff to provide cover from sunlight. You know what one of the benefits of trees are? Have these great big limbs. You know, they can provide shade, right? I mean, we kind of see a little bit of the shade from that tree right there. It seems like there was right there. Well, if all those trees, if you didn't chop them down, and you just, navigated your way through these trees here, you could probably work completely fine and wouldn't have to worry about the sun blistering and peeling your skin off. So, so again, so many questions here. I'm just gonna leave it up here for a little bit as we talk about, but yeah, like if anything else that you guys figure out what's going on, like, oh boy. Yeah, I was just reading my notes here. Okay. I'm going to come back to the last little bit of episode 3 or so. Removing the image now. Here we go. Hi, welcome back. So, that was fun. So they're in the process of the whole tree removing business. Arondir, along with the captain, because Armpit Elf deserved better and got left. He got killed. So he, along with some of the other I think we didn't get a full look of their ears, so I don't know if there's other ragtag group of elves, but there are also humans involved as well. So they have this small band of people at the end of the tunnel right here. They're all kind of digging. Some of them are chopping the tree, whatever. But some things where they've had enough, whatever. They see a moment of opportunity, and now the elves are like which again, there is this thing where we generally think of elves being sort of graceful and athletic. And they're able to use certain things, their sort of graceful motion. But anyway, they whip these chains around like weapons, which I could have, I guess, used at any point, but whatever. But a fight sequence breaks out where they are swinging chains and they're using and while some elves have like these digging farm implements as weapons, they're trying to fend people off. We have another group they're crossing their chains one over, and they're kind of smashing whatever devices and tools that they're using to try and break the chains or whatever. And we have this. Again, I have to convince myself this is not Tolkien, but if you want to say this is a cool fantasy, I mean, it would work great in a Dragon Age movie. But they have this sequence where the orcs, all the inhabitants, the elves and humans, whatever, they have chains in there, so they're grabbing hold of things and trying to pull them back, back into their covered area because they have a difficulty of their cloaks and hoods and whatever to kind of go out in the sunlight, so they're going to reel them back in, so that they can handle the situation. But of course, the captives, they're having their chains and they're pulling back, and and they have this sort of tug of war, and so these chains are taut. There's this line right here, and Arondir decides to do a cool slow-mo epic thing where he picks up one of the sort of axe-like implements, and he runs along sort of the taut chain that they're being called, and then leaps off of that, swinging the axe, and he decides to sever some of these beam portions that are holding up, like these two logs right here that are tied together, lashed right here, that have these tarp situations. Those are right in the middle right there where they all right there, separating the tarp and like things like, you know, like if, for example, bringing the sun in, and all of a sudden the orcs are like rising in agony. Like, pretty cool, I will admit, but it just begs to ask the real question is that, okay, you orcs have such a severe reaction to the sun. You could have left the trees up to provide shade. You could have dug a little bit deeper to have full cover from the sun. Or option 3, you could just dig during the night when the sun isn't out. That's a complete option right there. Why are you making it so hard on yourself? Right? Like you could adapt to be more of a nocturnal creature. I mean, you're already kind of subterranean, so the whole, you know, day-night thing is like completely off your schedule there. So like you could be like adapt to the night. You probably have like great vision during the night. So like, why do you purposefully dig in an environment that can harm you? I don't get it. Anyway, the beam breaks. The whole orc thing is like kind of right in the area. Some get saved, so like some of the orcs I think get killed, whether by the sun or by some other implements that the captives are using to beat them. So they release a warg instead because, you know, apparently I guess the wargs, being like an animal, can be out in the sun. Fine, sure, that's fine. Again, I have to kind of think this doesn't look like what I think a warg should look like, but again, okay, but this is what a warg looks in their universe? Okay, apparently this is what their warg like. Ugh, okay, fine, your wargs are weird. But, hey, that's your warg? Okay, fine, this is what the wargs you got. Release the warg, they say. And yet, they let the warg go with the chain still attached to its collar right there. So that there is a form of attachment from the warg that can be used to restrain the warg back. Gee, you don't think that the elven and human captives might use that revenge to hold the warg back at some point? Guess what they do? That's how Harandir defeats the warg right there. He lashes the chain around a post and is able to kind of like tie it down a little bit with the situation. So I'm like, again, that makes no sense whatsoever. The captain of the elven watchtower right there manages to escape with the whole chain breaking situation. Oh, okay, he's freed. He goes off to go ahead and climb up out of the ridge, and they're going to go. He is going to go off and see if he can find reinforcements and come back to them and see if he can, you know, help his buddies out. He's about to be killed by the warg, which is able to bust out of this whole chain situation here, and he's about to attack him when Arondir throws one of our spear-like implements into the warg, killing it and letting the captain go free. And so now Arondir, he's trying to climb up the ridge to see, you know, like maybe he can follow after him, or just to make sure like how he's able to escape. And I actually enjoyed this bit right here. It wasn't that easy because we look over the ridge and we see that the captain has made about like a couple feet and he is now riddled with arrows. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like it wouldn't be this easy, that the orcs would have like some sort of patrol around here to make sure that things would happen. Like, I'm glad that happened. But also, why did Arondir, when he first chopped down the tree, not see any of these guys? Again, setup and payoff. But apparently, so both now Armpit Elf is dead and the captain is dead. So just Arondir now apparently. So he gets dragged back down into the tunnel, and the orcs are about to go ahead and you're like, about to kill him, you know, like, hey, enough with this guy, we're gonna get rid of, you know. But apparently some orc or higher up in the command says, no, we won't kill him, we'll bring him to Adar. And then we have this kind of exclusive where Adar is kind of walking amongst the orcs, and they're all bowing, chanting his name. And this got me worried, because I'm like, okay, you said, first off, you mentioned that this could be Sauron, when knowing the subtle hints right here that when you give to the audience that this could be Sauron, that generally means it's not Sauron. So I wasn't believing that for an instance. But I'm like, okay, this elf character, he's leading this band of orcs, and Arondir, our elf, has just broken free. He's killed some of the orc people there and their warg, trying to help free himself and his captors by disobeying orders, causing havoc, and they're like, okay, this is going to be bad for Arondir then. So I'm like, they're going to make an example of him. So I'm like, okay, now things are getting serious here, because I'm like, who knows what's going to happen? Because that's kind of like how the episode ends. We have Adar coming out of the shadows. They're chanting Adar, and it's about to focus in on his face. We're about to see him, and cut to black. And it's like, ooh, what's going to happen? And you know, like, I actually felt a moment of worry, so I'm like, what's going to happen to Arondir? Because I'm like, this could be bad. Then I had a brief moment of like, wait a minute, this is Rings of Power. Things are probably just going to be stupid right hand. Oh, they went stupid. They went total stupid. Because yeah, that was the episode 3. Last episode 4. Oh yeah, the whole Numenorian thing. That's there is a tempest in me. Oh, okay. So, we're cutting back to Adar. So, episode 3 ended. Now, boom, we're going to go cut back to Adar. Who's over here. Apparently, so this is our first actual meeting of Adar. Which I kind of, he seems to have some sort of, like affection for his thralls, minions, whatever he thinks of them. And then they call him Adar, which means father, and he seems to have some sort of like he seems to care for them. Later, he says that he's trying to give them a home, or whatever. That's his goal in life, whatever. So I'm like, interesting motivation right here. But so he kind of has this care for it because one of the orcs right there, because of injuries during the fight, I don't know if it was because of like the warg, sidestepped and got angry at one of the orcs instead, or because he got injured by one of the captives. But anyway, the orc is dying, and he has this kind of tender moment where he wants to put the orc out of his misery. And I'm like, that's interesting. This is kind of set up of like who this character is. I'm intrigued. But then he turns to Arondir, and now here comes the big moment. What is going to happen? Adar says, I want you to send a message back to the people. Time out. Okay. You disobey my orders, foil my plans, destroy my work, you kill my soldiers, and I'll reward you by giving your life and setting you free. Like, okay, if you're in charge of a certain captive ring right here, and you witnessed this event, that this particular elf did all of this, and then you hear that, oh, by the way, that elf was set free, you would be like, damn, why didn't we do that before? Let's all do that. Because I'm like, if that's what we're dealing with, that they reward insubordinate behavior, like, why are we still here? Why are we in chains, people? Yeet out of here. So, that makes no sense. But yeah, they do the close. I want you to send a message. What message do you want me to send, basically? And then a custom like will be cut off to like whatever, Harfoot or Elrond or whatever that's going on there. So yeah, I love to do that. I just cut before things happen there. But yeah, that whole like, okay, wait, you're freeing this guy after all he's done to you and your plans at our... Yeah, oh yeah, by the way, here's the thing. So you're setting free well, you're pretty much sure this, so like either before you didn't know he was like an elven watchtower warrior position, based on the information you do know, that he was able to handle the warg situation, get his friends free and fight back, you know he has some warrior capabilities in here. So you're completely trusting that he won't continue with his original plan to go find a band of an elven army and come back to the home base and trying to free the captives? Which he doesn't do, by the way. He goes back to the watchtower to send a message and stays out and hangs out with them. Wait. The original plan, we had this. We saw this discussion. Somebody needs to get out there, escape, find an army, come back and free the people. And we're not gonna do that. Oh, but because Bronwyn is at the watchtower, he's gotta go reunite with his love, or whatever is... Okay. Anyway, speaking of watchtower, the Southlanders are in a very big pickle of a situation here. Because, the Southlanders packed up and moved to the watchtower to, to weather the situation that might be developing. Because, who knows what's happening. We saw the orc head, so, that might be growing. So what's going to happen? They get to the watchtower and they have a little teeny tiny problem. Do you know what that problem is? For those, could you guess? For those of you who haven't seen the movie or the show, you know what the problem is? The problem is that when they go to the watchtower, they're away from their farmsteads where where they grow things, whatever. So the problem is that they don't have any food stores at the stores are empty at the watchtower. So no one thought to pack up any amount of food with them when they're going to the watchtower. Isn't this basic castle fortification siege warfare? Is that when the enemy comes to the castle, and it is very difficult for you to get food outside the castle, so you have to survive with everything that you bring in, and hopefully you have enough to last however duration of the fight is going to be. Isn't that basic castle warfare? Like you stockpile on food because you can't really leave the walls to go get them because the enemy's out there? Or have I been wrong about castle warfare this entire time? Please, if there's somebody who knows any better more than me, please enlighten me about the intricacies of medieval warfare and combat. So, I've made a bunch of notes. Remember the scene, because again, trying to be Tolkien, does anyone remember the scene in the Two Towers? Where Theoden gives, the order of hey, we're gonna go flee to the refuge of Helm's Deep. Do not burden yourselves with treasures. Take only what provisions you need. Remember that? Where they all grabbed their kids and they grabbed their whatever weapons that they needed to and food and that was it, basically. And they grabbed their wagons and they headed off to the fortress. These guys apparently did none of that. Now, I don't expect them to have weapons or anything. They're probably at the watchtower, but grab your children and food at least. You could do that. So, I guess, again, just the whole Helm's Deep. Which, by the way, this whole situation of them being in this fortress situation and how lackluster it is, this whole thing has been dubbed Helm's Cheap. The cheap knockoff version of Helm's Deep. So if people are talking about that, you'll know that's what it's been officially dubbed, Helm's Cheap, by the way. So that's a pretty good description right there. So Bronwyn, for some reason, seems to be in charge a little bit of the whole thing. I guess because she revealed the whole orc head thing so that now they're all gathered at the watchtower and they're dealing with the whole food situation of settling down and whatever, that people are kind of listening to her. I have a question. Why? Why would you listen to this particular individual? What you've set up is that the entire village, with no evidence whatsoever, again, didn't want to even investigate, dismissed an entire village disappearing off the map because she didn't have any evidence. So why would they suddenly start taking orders from her? They were just one orc head is proof that there might be some nefarious people at work. If anything, I would think Waldrick might have some authority in his own, because people seem to look to him in the tavern where they gather. He seems to kind of control the situation. Hey, this is whatever happens in this little tavern here. Hey, these are the rules. Respect each other. Need a drink. Here we go. Got food in the back. He seems to have at least some minimal say, I would think. But then again, why isn't there some sort of like governor or mayor, whatever, to like have some sort of town organization, the wise wizard woman or whatever mentor of the village? At least, again, at least in the Hobbit movies, we had the mayor of Lake Town. You know, we had some form of organization with his like deputy Alfred. You know, like the guards seemed to report under him. You know, like that at least had some sort of like there's some sort of structure in the system of like someone has to give orders and like organize and who has like the final say, whatever. And yet this town has none of it. It's just weird. It's just really weird. Then again, maybe that's what this civilization is like. It's a bit hard for me to wrap my brain around, but okay. Apparently this is what these Southlanders are like. Sorry, I just had that idea of the constitutional peasant coming to my mind from Monty Python. We're living in a dictatorship. Like, no, you're all democratic here. So, it has been deemed too dangerous to venture out of the walls, which, by the way, I'll eventually throw up an image of what because I couldn't find really images of what the watchtower kind of looks like is. I found kind of a couple images that don't really do it justice, so I made a fortress up in SketchUp. There's a program that I had that you're able to work with geometric figures and whatnot. So eventually I'll show that to you guys. But the fortress has like a main sort of like big tower. There's like a sort of a ring around everything, and they have like a little small gatehouse with a bridge. Like okay, basic watchtower, fine. They establish that they cannot venture beyond the walls, or venture beyond the walls far, because, you know, like we don't know where the orcs might be. It's a bit dangerous. We have to stay close. But, you know, we have this whole food situation. So what do? So they postulate that some people might be able to go out and forage for food. Again, excuse me, you just said that people cannot venture far beyond the walls. You guys do know what foraging means, right? Look up the definition of foraging if you want, but I mean, like, I'm pretty sure, like, to do one would be contradicting the other right here. But okay, but apparently we need to have this conflict for some reason, because we need to have an excuse to have Theo, our plucky kid, to sort of like break the rules and sneak out because he feels that he can go out and forage for food or whatever. So because for that, like, why couldn't he just make a speech of like, hey mom, I want to go and help out? He doesn't have to like sneak out for anything, whatever, I don't know, but again, things are weird. So, oh yes. We get leading up to the well scene. So, Theo and his lovely buddy, again, who I do not know his name, they go out and they're going to go sneak out and go forage for food. You know, the boy has the nameless one, kind of like a wheelbarrow thing that they can cart stuff around here. So they're looking for food. Where would be a good place that you could, you know, possibly find food? Where would be a good place that you would find a surplus of food to help take back to the people? Guess where they go? Yeah, that's right. Back to the village. So, you're going back to the village to get food, which you could have packed up some food on your original trip to the watchtower so that you wouldn't have to go back to the village to get food. You could have just saved a whole lot of time for people and also make more logical sense. Somebody made the wonderful postulation that, you know, like, hey, if the orcs were really hot on their tail and they didn't have time to pack things up and the orcs were just coming after them and they just got to the fortress and closed the gates before the orcs got in and they weren't able to grab food, I'm like, okay, that could at least set up the need of like, okay, but hey, we're safe, but hey, don't worry, we're in the fortress, but the fortress has a storage of food and they open the storage and, oh man, the storage actually is kind of empty. Now what do we do? It would have been fine, but no, we had to have this whole situation of we're going to go to the watchtower, we're not going to bring food, but oh, we're out of food. Hey, let's go back to the village to get food and then come back. I need a drink. Okay. Ah, that's a little better. This is not alcohol, by the way. This is a tea, by the way. Okay, so boys are going off and getting food at the village. But the boy, specifically Theo himself, specifically, he takes the sword, broken sword hilt with him. There's a part where he kind of like hides it under sure so we can sneak out with him because like whether he feels attached to it somehow, or for some reason like he kind of likes it. Maybe he feels like it's some sort of protection or something. But he has some form of bond with it, or maybe it's his precious. I don't know, but. So we have this, that he's going off there, and so he's kind of like hidden away somewhere. So the other nameless kid, he's got enough food kind of piled up onto the wheelbarrow, and he's thinking, hey, it's time to head out. And it's a particularly cloudy day, we noticed this one, and the Theo says that he's going to go to I think he specifically said the tavern, to see if there's a couple more things that they can grab. And the other kid is like looking around, like it kind of looks a little bit spooky out here. It's getting a little dark. Like you know what? I'm gonna go ahead. If you, it'd be nice to say like if he would actually say, you go ahead and go in there and come back with me later. No, he just ditches him, just leaves out without him. Doesn't say like, hey, I'm leaving. No warning. He just carts off. There he goes. But so it's a cloudy day. When clouds come over there, it blocks the sun. Guess what I think we're leading up here? Yeah, apparently there are orcs about to come out near the village. He's also inside now, so it's kind of a little bit of sun shelter as well. So as it goes into the building, and surprise, ooh, the orc is there, which also I think is a bit of a weird reveal, because we have that shot where like, okay, Theo is kind of walking around, and then he has that thing where that shot where you can see stuff in the background, but then he pauses, and then he kind of looks back, and then the camera like focuses on the background, and we see like an orc in that shot, and that suddenly springs out and goes over or something like, okay, so wait, the orc decided to move as soon as the boy recognized him. Like, wouldn't you want to come and surprise him before he realizes that? But no, I'm assuming that was for the audience, us to watch that, right? So, orcs are making an attack onto the boy, Theo specifically, because the other boy is yeeted out. So there's a bit of scuffle. He's trying to defend himself. I believe it is in this specific incident where like kind of has like the blade out, because I don't know whether he like stabs the orc or something, or if he drops it or something. But there's happens where like the orc witnesses that Theo has this particular implement on it, and he makes a comment, "You have it!" So like, oh really? The orcs were looking for a weapon after all, really? So see, audience, the weapon that Theo had right here might have been the weapon that we told you about that the orcs were looking for, remember? So hey, our subtle hinting has paid off, you see. Did I just almost stab myself right there? That would have been horrible. But the boy, I forget how he runs off, whether like stabs like the orc and then kind of quick runs away, but apparently in the scuffle, he gets away from the orc. The orc is trying to run after him or whatever, and eventually we find out that the boy hides in a well, but we'll get back to that later. Apparently, he also has hidden the sword hilt, like in one of the sacks of grain that he was trying to bring back to the watchtower. So this leads us down to the rabbit hole of why you would leave something like this behind. Like, if you have set up that there is a plot device, MacGuffin, that some dark evil person is looking for, you could do that where you would want to say like you want to leave that behind. Because you might say, so like, hey, this is kind of like a dark origin right here that seems to be prominent that people are looking for. If I'm holding on to it and they can kind of sense it, so better, they might be able to find me, and I'm kind of wanting to save myself a little bit. So if I cast it aside or put it away, I might go slip away undetected because they can't track me or something like that. So like, if you want, it'd be nice if they actually set that up. But I can hypothesize something like that happening. And this is me trying to put logic onto this. But here's the thing. If you say that it is a rune stone that has like a font of note of mana energy that if the bad guy tapped into it, it could give him, you know, a new magical power that could be unstopped. Or if it was a tome of like lore that revealed certain secrets of the universe and that it could expand his power. Or let's say if it was like a key that you've set up that like there's like a door that is so far buried underneath the mountain that like that evil could be unleashed if they could open the door, but it cannot be opened by any enchantment except for the key. And so now he has this sort of like that, and he decides to leave it behind because one, he might think that, okay, they might track me if they can track this object, but two, I don't want them to fall into their hands, so what do? I'm just going to hide it. Okay, but the thing is, you've made the magical MacGuffin a weapon, something that you can defend yourself with. And so, I don't understand. So like, you're being hunted by orcs, being squared after you, and yet you have something in your possession that can defend you. Again, it's not great or anything, but you could slash, you could stab. It's small and concealable. The furnace just kicked in, so I hope that's not too loud for you guys. I'm going to continue talking over this, but you have an implement to defend yourself, like as opposed to going at it with nothing, or having at least something with you. I'd have a weapon on me, but oh no, it gets worse because we've established the boy knows that he has this full Morgoth lightsaber in his hands. That if he gives the blood, it activates into an actual freaking sword. Something that might be really useful to defend yourself against orcs. So you could have this moment where the boy is trying to figure out, like, he's cornered, he knows he probably shouldn't do this, but back is up against the wall, there's a couple of different orcs, and he's like, so gives blood to the thing, and the sword reforms into this, and I was like, okay, come at me, bro! And he activates dark magic to help defend himself. There could be a plot of like, does he go down a dark path? What has he unleashed or whatever? None of that. Like, what the heck? It makes no sense whatsoever. Again, I apologize if the furnace and the air conditioning turning off is a bit too loud, but I'm going to hope everything is going to go ahead. We're going to continue off because at least some sort of distraction from this to help keep my mind off of the utter insanity that is like you're leaving your weapon behind to save you. Whatever. But anyway, he goes off and scampers off out the door, and so the orc, picks himself up after the scuffle, and he goes out to find him. And interestingly enough, you head out the door, and there's two noticeable things really close by. And to the left, kind of there, you can see like this big tree right here that the boy could have run up against. And to the right side over here, we have this will be like the well. It seems like to get water from. And the orc busts out the door, and he's about to go chase after the boy, and the boy is gone. Oh my goodness, where could he possibly be? And so the orc runs past the tree and the well, and goes off as he's trying to communicate with his other orc buddies. I'm like, hey, have you seen him? Where did he go? And I'm like, what, dude, stop. It's fairly obvious if you could only disappear that quick. You have two options. You ran past the tree, we both saw it. There doesn't seem to be any kid kind of up in the branches right there. I mean, it's not that thick foliage up there. So, odds are pretty likely he probably jumped down into the well, but he doesn't go down and he doesn't like run past him to like look down it or anything. Like, no, he just like, nope, couldn't possibly be in the well. Nah. But, we have that pan shot where we tip over, and we kind of look down the well and say, oh, hey, look, there's a boy in there. And we kind of like cut away from there because the boy is Theo. Sorry, this one actually has a name, Theo. He's trying to figure out what's going on. Well, man, there's this whole fight kind of in the tavern. It's a bit. I've been running all over the place trying to find him. Whew, I'm a bit thirsty. I'm gonna go get a drink. So the orc goes over to the well where the bucket is already filled with water, and he takes a drink. Goes, damn. Tosses it back into the well. Well, of course, it lands on Theo, causing a particular sound, and also Theo kind of, reacts a little bit, lets out not like a squeal, a grunt, or something, and then all of a sudden the orc hears this, and he's like, because he tosses it down the well, kind of walks over and is like, wait a minute, what was that? So now he has like his kind of like blade image, and he's kind of leaking over to the well. Again, why they prolong this, like, I'm gonna get you, and he looks down the well, and it's filled with water. Oh, I guess the boy wasn't down here after all. Okay. Like, the orc doesn't think that he might have like submerged under the water to try and hide at all. Doesn't like you would think that like if you heard something you would like sit there for a while and see if somebody's gonna come up for air or whatever, which, surprise, he does, and because the orc, turns away. Not about 2 or 3 seconds later, Theo bursts out of the water, gulping and heaving for air. It's like this whole splashing, this breathing. You didn't hear when you set up that when you tossed the bucket, you heard a thud a little bit, and the sound from the boy. But now when he's splashing and heaving for air, you don't hear that. When you're approximately the same distance away as last time. Set up, payoff. So, anyway, they can't find the boy, for whatever reason. And, again, because I'm looking at my notes here, touching back to the whole Numenorian thing a little bit, the whole thing about the map reveal of Numenor, that like the whole symbol that Galadriel found was a map to the Southlands right here. Spoiler for those of you who weren't aware. So this was a map left by Sauron for his followers to enact or gather, or while he was away doing other stuff. So the orcs were smart enough to figure this out because they're in the Southlands and they've amassed together. It seems like they have a leader named Adar, and they're doing nefarious works. But the entire time, Galadriel and the elves and the men of Numenor have had this symbol and resources, and they haven't figured this out. So, based on my assumption, you've set up that the orcs are more intelligent than the other races of Middle-earth here, or whatever realm, because obviously this is not Middle-earth, because this is Tolkien. But so, and now you're saying that these orcs are so dumb that they cannot figure out that this boy might be hiding in a well. Okay. I may remind everyone that we're only talking about 1 through 4 of the episodes. We still got the other half of the show to talk about still. This is just the first half right here. It gets even worse. 5 through 8. So, alright. So yeah, after the whole, going back and speaking of Galadriel, we have a sequence with her. Cutting back to the Southlands. Alright. We cut back to the Watchtower at this point. Other guy, nameless boy, youth, he comes back with his little wheelbarrow, and he's got the food, and everyone's, delighted, he's food. I'm like, where were you? We were getting food. Oh, good job, boy. And, well, where's Theo? I was like, I thought he was, right behind me, really? You kind of skedaddled and said, didn't even check, but okay, fine. So I'm like, oh no, Theo's not there, he's still back there, what are we gonna do? Later we find out that Bronwyn decides to leave and, to go after her boy. I'm like, oh, okay, so now the motherly instinct kicks in? Whereas they're like, oh, okay, so now she's gonna go and find her son? Okay, fine. But anyway, Theo was still inside the well. Got back to him. But okay, now it's officially getting night. Did I mention that? This whole time was kind of morning, afternoon. Now okay, now the sun is getting dark. The orcs are kind of using torches now. Which again, the whole idea of why they wouldn't be digging in nighttime or being out in the night, they would have incredible vision, so why would they not have torches? But anyway, that's a topic for another discussion. So the orcs are kind of looking there. He's kind of now climbed himself out a little bit, and he's hiding amongst the grasses, and he's sneaking his way off through. But hey, you know, in another extended sequence, that fool tries to trick the audience that, oh, he made it out fine. No, he didn't. The orcs find him. But he gets caught, and who should happen to come in and save the day? It happens to be Arondir. Arondir, because apparently he's not going to go find his elven brethren or some sort of army to come back, follow the original plan. He's going to go back to tell the Southlanders the message that Adar has given him. And so, how does Arondir save him? Well, he kills the orc with his sword. Talking about his sword? Yeah, his sword. That, you know, that he was originally confiscated when he got pulled in by the orcs and got as a slave. Then now the orcs are after them. He has his bow and he starts throwing arrows. Yeah, you heard me right. He has his sword and bow. So not only did the Adar set him free, they gave him his weapons back. Are you kidding? Adar, you suck at your job. Like, this is like Evil Overlord 101 right here. If you have a captive and you need, for whatever reason, have to set him free, for whatever reason, you don't give him implements to come and harm you with, or your minions. This should be self-explanatory. But the orcs, they discover the commotion. They see Arondir and Theo escaping, so now they're running after him. They're by the village, so now they have to go to the watchtower. Apparently there's like a little woodland section, so now they're going through the woods. It's a bit dark, there's trees. What are they going to do? Now the orcs, there's a big band of orcs coming after them. Now the orcs a couple of them have their own bows and arrows, and they're shooting out arrows and whatnot. So like they're kind of done. It's getting a bit hairy. I think the boy gets injured at one point. I don't know if it's because of an arrow or because of a previous attack or whatever, but his legs have been injured, so he's kind of, this is typical, how are we going to get to safety? You know, like, so Arondir, he decides to, like, you keep running, I'll hold him off a little bit. Who should randomly show up but Bronwyn, the mother of Theo? She finds them. And so now she's kind of helping carry her son along. Again, like, how the heck did she find them? Whatever. I mean, I guess the commotion of a whole bunch of orcs running through the forest might be something that you could draw your attention, but then again, wouldn't you run in the opposite direction? I guess, you know, if you think, okay, if your son is in danger, go where the orcs are, you take on that choice to go save your son, at the risk of you. Okay, I take that back. Okay, I'll grant them that. But we're getting to the point where dawn is approaching, and at least I think it is. I'm assuming there's not been so much cloud cover that it would have affected this entire thing. But they're running through the forest, not like Robin Hood and Little John running through the forest. No, they're trying to get away from all of these orcs, and they're hot on their trail. And they break out of the forest. They're now into the open grassland, and they're picking up Theo, and they're trying to get away. You know, like, okay, and so finally, looks like we're gonna have our last stand. Bronwyn, you take Theo and get out of here. Bronwyn's like, no, I'm staying with you. And I'm like, why would you stay? Wouldn't you go off and try to save him? Okay, maybe Theo's continuing to run off, but she wants to stay with him because maybe she likes him. I don't know, but of course, we all know what's gonna happen. The orcs are come out, and they're about to go, and they see them in the clearing, and they're about to come, and what should happen? Oh, the dawn appears, the clouds move, and the sun appears, and we can't go out there because we'll be get killed, or something, or whatever. And they just stand there. Like the orcs just stand there in the cover of the trees, because, oh, weird, trees provide shade? Who would have thunk that? Maybe you could have used that in your tunnel or trench that you were building. So they're sitting there, standing, aggravated, like, what are we gonna do? Even though they could have like their hoods and cloaks or whatever that they've used previously to kind of help shelter them, they don't go out and try and take them. No. Or they don't even bother to, like, they had arrows previously that they were shooting at them while they were in the woods. They don't say, like, maybe we should start shooting arrows and then go ahead and kill them, and then like, oh, okay, now we don't have to worry about it, we just have to run out, grab their bodies and bring them back. Whatever. Like, none of these things cross their mind. It's just like, oh, the sun is up. I guess we've lost. Yeah, too bad. Shucks, we'll get them next time. So, what could possibly be so important that Arondir is set free to give this such important message to the Southlanders? I mean, it must be very important to let loose a captive who is so strong and intelligent and capable that he is broken free, tried to escape, killed some of your men, that you would want to arm him and send him back. The message is basically surrender or die. Like, that's it. You couldn't have sent another nameless goon, whether either human or orc, to go off to the Southlanders and say, hey, this is the message from our master. You could have done that. Kept both of your slaves if you wanted to. Right? You could do that. It wouldn't be too hard. Save a bunch of resources. Oh, but well, see, at that point, it would probably, because if you had sent them to the watchtower, it would probably be during sun, and the orcs don't like sun, so yeah, I know that probably wouldn't work. Well, we didn't just send them during the nighttime then. Well, we can't do that, so like, I'm trying to think of what like the writer's room looked like when you trying to postulate all of these ideas. Because I'm like, okay, what is the A to B to C? Right here, or just the simple, just like set up, payoff of this entire half of the season that we are watching here. So, what the heck is here? And the final thing that is mentioned is that apparently Waldrick, right here, who's kind of a bit, aloof, has some say, kind of sit in the background, but suddenly it appears like, he might have had some allegiances to the dark guy who has been gathering so long. This theory that the villagers might join the enemy might actually have some theory, because this guy might have some ties to that. And so, like, have you heard of the enemy? They say the name is Sauron, but well, this is in Tolkien, so I have no idea who it could actually be. But so Waldrick is apparently might be in league with the enemy. So like, ooh, this is a new thing. Do they actually have a traitor, or maybe just a sympathizer in their midst? And the last thing is Adar, our elven orc leader, is informed by the orcs that, oh, the blade, the boy has it. And so like, oh, so we must, and he says like, assemble the army. So that is where we leave off. Okay, everyone is back at the watchtower. We have their things right there. The boy still has the blade because, oh yeah, that's another thing. The boy, in the whole entire scuffle of Arondir saving Theo goes back and, because that's how we find out that he actually hid the sword, because we didn't see that previously. All we know is that he ran out to go into the well, then he comes back and he picks up the sword from the sack of grain. I'm like, it would be nice to see him hit it originally. We just get the reaction of him pulling it out of the sack of grain. I'm like, oh, okay, apparently he hit it. But yeah, he went back for the grain, has a sword now. Again, why did he not just use it to defend himself? That would have been nice. Still not over that. But looks like Adar is getting his army ready, and he is coming for them. And that is where we pretty much end the Southlander arc in episode 4. We're halfway there. And may I just remind everyone that each episode is a little bit over an hour long. So we've had about 4.5 hours of the Rings of Power, including all the whole Galadriel, Harfoots, Elrond stuff happening right there. 4.5 hours. This is what we've got right here. May I just remind everyone that if you're actually experiencing actual Tolkien stuff, like this is my copy of the Blu-ray extended edition of the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings, what you could actually watch in 4.5 hours, you could watch the entirety of the Fellowship of the Ring extended edition, and if you skip the credits, which honestly I think most of us do anyway, you could watch about an hour into the extended Two Towers. That's right around the time frame where Gollum is leading Frodo and Sam to the Black Gate, and where Gandalf the White is about to head over to Edoras to free Theoden from the grip of Grima Wormtongue and Saruman. That's how far you get. Think of all the dips and valleys and peaks and highs and lows and the journeys we've come from. We've got, you know, the Balrog of Moria. We've got the Hobbit community that's in danger. The Ringwraiths are coming and tracking them down. Saruman is an enemy. Galadriel gives them gifts. Boromir dies. Spoiler. It's Sean Bean, so, you know chances are he's going to die. We have the Two Towers. Gandalf returns. Gollum is introduced. All of this stuff. Everything, this whole here that we have been, at least I hope I have been captivated. This entire journey. 4.5 hours. And what have we really done in this one here? Well, love to see what happens in episodes 5 through 8. Because it's just as bad. Like the whole plot of setting things up and where things go and like things that they conveniently forget and whatever. But I believe I'm going to do one more episode of recapping the entire episodes of 5 through 8 of the whole arc, and then I'm going to have the last episode that we're going to do is just going to be just the Southlanders out. So I'm going to do another episode of this. It's been long trying to talk and get my thoughts about this, but you know what? It actually was kind of fun for me just to discuss all of this. I honestly have no idea because you've probably seen some jump cuts and all of this because I had to change my batteries and whatnot through there, so you probably would have seen some time with us. So yeah, I have honestly no idea how long this has been talking about this, but it was a bit kind of fun for me to do. This is kind of like the third try I've done this, but hopefully I will see you all later in whatever installments, whether you want to go see the recap of it in 5 through 8, or if you're just going to go ahead and cut to specifically the Southlander episode from this one, which you can go and cut to that by going and finding that video if it's available on YouTube right now. So, hope to see you again. Until next time, keep a watchful eye.